Okay. Okay. So let's get going now. We are looking at the Bhagavata Purana. The word Purana itself is something that we should understand properly. What a Purana is. Purana actually means something that is quite old, or you can even call it as quite eternal, quite old. But at the same time, that is the difference. Then only it becomes a Purana. At the same time, it is relevant to the times, whichever time whatever times that you are talking about, it is relevant to that time. So today, in this 21st century world of generative AI, prompt engineering, and all those kind of stuff that we see, chat GPT and AI and all those things that are going around in this world, even today, the wisdom imparted by the Upanishads, as captured by the stories in the scripture of Mahabharata, is relevant. Even now it is relevant. Mahabharata is a very old, eternal document, but at the same time it is relevant even now. So a document that is old, but at the same time relevant at the in the modern times is called as a Purana. And these Puranas, not only is it just the nature of the eternity of the document and the relevance to us in this world, there is also this requirement that a Purana, when it has to become a Mahapurana, like Bhagavata Mahapurana, there has to be 10 lakshanas that the document or the scripture should have. And these, we are not going to go into deep depths of these things, but rather we are going to directly go into stories. But at the same time, I thought I'll spend a few minutes initially to just introduce this the Mahapurana lakshanas, the 10 lakshanas of the Mahabharata. So they are Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, Poshana, Udi, Manvandara, Ishanukata, Nirodha, Mukti, and Asraya. These are the 10 specific lakshanas or characteristics that a Purana should have so that it becomes a Mahabharata. And Bhagavatam, the Bhagavata Grantha, is the one Grantha that has got all these 10 lakshanas. So it is called as a Mahabharata. And in fact, if you quickly look at the characteristics of these lakshanas, you can say the Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, it actually can be listed in a practical sense as creation, Sarga. Then these words are mapped. Sarga is creation, Visarga is the secondary creation, or you can call it as creativity and innovation. Sthana, productivity and sustainability, maintenance. Poshana, nourishment or protection and enrichment. Udi is talking about the inner, actually, impetus of nature and the aspirations that drive us. Manvandara talks about the series of mankind that has come forth. So it can call it you can call it as a history of mankind, or it can also call it as the history of thought power. Ishanukata. Ishanukata are stories about the divine, which is talking about the value systems that they imparted to us. Nirodha is about the destruction of the negative. It is called as the cosmic destruction, but it is about the destruction of the negatives from within us. Mukti is the liberation that you attain from your limitations because you have destroyed all the negatives and bad and evil within you. It's like, it is like the idol that we see, the sandalwood idol or the stone idol, whatever it is, this idol from a particular material, whatever it is. You chip away the unwanted stuff from that, and out will emerge the divine, liberating you from all the negatives and then the divinity appearing forth. So that is what we should remember when we see the idols that we worship. When we go to a temple, stand with our shut eyes in front of the grandeur of the idol. What we should be remembering is the grandeur that is within me. And the message that we have to chip away all the negative things from within us to emerge as one-to-one with that divinity, oneness with that divinity. Mukti and asraya. And ultimately, the individual, will reside in that infinite, residing in that self. That is the asraya, residence in the self, the asraya that we attain. So these are all the aspects that are covered in the stories of the Bhagavata Purana. And we are going to, several stories are being mentioned. Some examples are also shown in this screen that is shown there. Several stories. So out of these several stories, we will be talking about a dozen of them with the perspective of, seeing the significance by comparing comparing it to our own psyche, an analogical representation of what these Bhagavata Purana means to each one of us. And before I start, one more thing, I think it is better to look at one more thing, that is the structure of the Bhagavata Purana can be something like this. It can be seen to be something like this. It is a nested dialogue-based rendering. It's basically the style of the literature. At the outer level, we have Sudha Pauranika talking to the Maharishis, Saunaka and others, Saunakadi Maharshis. That is at the outer. And then within that conversations, we can see Shuga appearing and talking to Parikshit. Shuga to Parikshit, sage, Shuga to Parikshit. And also within that, we have Maitreya talking to Vidura. So this is the kind of nested structure of dialogues that actually takes place and which we listen, which we all of us read and listen, and to get the stories out and the significance. So this is in general. So here you can actually see that at the outer level, Sudha Pauranika talking to Saunaka Maharshi. I can roughly tell, compare the analogical meanings of these names also, which is what is the brilliant way in which, messages have been captured in the Mahabharata. So that's, from this itself, we can, start off from here as an initial tip off. And then we will look at more details later. The outer level, we have, a timeless charioteer, Sudha. Sudha is the charioteer, Pauranika, eternal charioteer. For those who are set on the austerities to accomplish release from limitations. Shaunagadi Maharshis. Maharishis are people who are set upon austerities. And through these austerities only they acquire all these kind of knowledge and capabilities. They become Maharishis. So such Maharishis actually are getting bound by the timeless charioteer. You know that who the timeless charioteer is. So that is the outer level package with which the Bhagavata Purana is given to us. And then within that internally, we have Sri Shuka talking to Parikshit, which is about a narrator. Parrot is a narrator in the sense of, parroting in English language has also come from that, narrating something that he has already heard. So a narrator of joy and pleasure of that infinite self for those who actually care to listen, interpret, and also inquire. Pariksha, examine, parikshit. So such people who are examining and trying to figure out who am I, the nature of the self, and testing everything and checking out. Such people, to such parikshits, the Shuga-like sage will parrot this wisdom for you. Okay. So Sri Shuga talking to Parikshit. And internally, we have Maitreya talking to Vidura, a friend, Maitreya, a close friend of ours, to the wise Vidura. If you are wise, we can actually listen to our own close friend. Who is that close friend? The self, Atman within us, which we will also see. This close friend we will see in Puranjano Vakyanam also. Okay, so Maitreya and Vidura. So it is about 3 layers of actually conceptualizations, analogous conceptualizations of things that are happening within us. So just as an outset, I wanted to mention this. We will talk about these things more and more when we get into these stories. Okay, so what I am going to do is to talk about 12 stories. Take 12 stories from this, from the various skandhas, 12 skandhas, not all skandhas, but spread across these skandhas, we have taken 12 stories, and we will start today with the Daksha's story, Daksha Yaga, Daksha and Sati. That story is from where we are going to start. And characters in each of these stories. So that's one of the things, our inquiry, our parikshit, the pariksha or examination is going to be based on these characters that we have, characters that we are going to see in these stories. Every character in every story, you will see that they are all representative of something. It is not just about that character in the story, in just the story. It is not. Those stories are for our visualization so that it sticks to our mind. And therefore, we will be able to recollect and then also ruminate over it, reflect over it, and connect with it. And these names are such that they give a meaning to an internal thing within us. It could be your what do you call cognitive capabilities. It could be your emotional characteristics, or it could be your intellectual acumen, or it could be the value systems that we are bound to and how they have to be integrated. So every story, every character represents something within us. That is the inquiry that we are trying to do here. So that every story, when we go through these stories, when we attend discourses on Bhagavata Purana or attend Saptaham, etc., and as we go through these stories, these should strike our minds. When it strikes our mind, that way we get a connection to the whole process, which is a kind of a very elevating experience. So we will do that. 12 stories, starting with Daksha Yaga, Daksha Yaga, Dhruvacharitam, Puranjanobhakyanam, Narasimhavataram, or Prahlada's story, Gajendra Moksham, Palari Mathanam, Vamanavataram, or Mahabali's story. Then we also have a few stories from Krishna Avatar, Sri Krishna, the birth of Krishna, and Kaliya Mardhanam, Kaliya's subjugation, Rukmini Swayamvaram, Kujela Vratam, Kujela, story of Kujela, and ultimately we will also look at the Avadhuta Gita, the 24 videos. So these are the 12 stories that we have taken from the first, fourth, actually third or fourth skandha to the 12th, 11th and 12th, finally. In between, we'll also see a little bit of, some of the stutis that happen, like Dhruva Stuti and Prahlada Stuti and all those things. We'll try to see how correlate all these things also into our own psyche. So it is an analogical study. And I think this kind of an exercise, of course, we are going to do it at a very higher level now. But I, personally, I have seen a tremendous utility for these stories of Bhagavata Purana for our youth and children, specifically children in the age group of maybe 10 to 15. That is a time when these stories, when they are exposed, when the children are exposed to these stories in a very gradual manner, which we do in our classes here, across, one story may take 3-4 1 or 2 months actually, or 48 weeks or something like that. They go through that in detail, and then the connection that happens with the value systems, the wisdom of Bhagavad-Gita and the Upanishads, as well as the modus operandi of thinking about these things in a particular manner, which is about the analogous thinking about something in relation to another that seemingly looks different for the layman. But the children start thinking, fourth or fifth story, when we go through this in a series, 1, 2, 3, or fourth or fifth story, after that, the children themselves are able to come out with the analogies. That means that when they read a story, they are able to think within their back, the what we call as the B brain. The back brain is actually giving them the inputs to connect these two value systems. So this is not just an exercise in understanding the Bhagavata Purana, but is also a process of reshaping the process of thinking. And when you are studying math, physics, or literature, whatever, this process kicks in. to such minds. When they get through this in detail, when they are going through this exercise in seriously and in detail, the mind starts shaping up in that manner. It is like clay being molded, and then ultimately, when you go through these 12 stories, I have seen that the children have a mindset that is capable of analyzing what they are hearing, thinking and trying to connect it with the problems of the world, the outer world, which is basically what all education is all about, and all innovation and creativity is all about. And I think we have been presented with such a wonderful Purana, Mahapurana at that, with so many stories of grandeur and illustrations, visualizations, fantastic visualizations. Why? It is for our children to imbibe the process of thought, process of thinking, and such powerful. You don't have to explore outside for stories and trying to teach our youth, our children, these value systems, as well as to develop that mindset. So that is also one of the side things that is byproduct of going through the Bhagavad Purana through mapping the analogies. So we will get started. Initially, I would request Anji to give the story of Sati and Daksha, from where we will get started. Over to Anandji.
Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Om Vigneshwaraya Namah. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwarah. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Pranams to one and all here. As Satish ji mentioned, my name is Anand. I live in Bangalore. I was really surprised when Satish ji mentioned to me that I should write the stories for the topics to be delivered in 12 sessions by Satish ji. When I came to know that it should follow the same pattern as the Moolam Bhagavatam, I received another shock. I was not knowing that I am in for a greatest shock when I received it from Satish ji mentioning that those stories should be told by me. Satish ji is my guru. And our scriptures say that you will not get the benefits if you don't surrender to the guru. I have never done anything like this in my life. And I don't have the knowledge and wisdom to do that also. Then I said to myself, remove the doership, as always Satish ji says. And I said, it will be done as decided by the self. I never knew about Narayaniyam or Bhagavatam or something like that, till 2005. Though my wife, she learned Narayaniyam and she learned Bhagavatam and she can chant all the 18,000 verses very fluently without any difficulty. But somehow I never knew what it is. One day, when I was in the morning having a cup of coffee, I switched on the TV. I saw one Swamiji talking about Mukti Sudhagaram. That is the 11th chapter of Bhagavatam. And incidentally, that was the second day. Somehow, and he was just starting, and it was only for 20 minutes. Somehow I got hooked into it, and I never missed even one day, of that lecture. And somehow, I started knowing more and more about it. I have done my preparations. And I remember the first verse in Upadesha Sara by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. It stays, Karturatnyaya praptade bhalam, mentioning, you do whatever you want to do. The results are not with you. Exactly what has been said in the second chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. Having said this, the fourth skanda, where the topics of today is elaborated, is a very important one known as Visarga, as explained by Satish ji just now. It focuses mainly on creation. It focuses on the development of cosmic order through the lineage of Manu, while emphasizing the practical application of bhakti through the historical narration of the life of kings and sages. It shows triumph of devotion over material ego, responsibilities of leadership, and danger of showing disrespect to the elevated souls. Starting from the danger of ego and offenses, the Daksha Yaga, power of devotion, Dhruva Charitra, leadership and responsibility, King Pradhu, and spiritual teachings through story of Puranjana. Fourth skanda summarizes the requirement of humility, determination, duty, and bliss. Having set the stage, let us travel the Daksha Yagam, covering 6 chapters. I will say a few words on the first chapter, where Daksha's 13 daughters are married, and the 3 daughters are also married, and Sati is the 16th daughter. Daksha Prajapati is the Manasa Putran of Brahma. Prasudi is the 3rd daughter of Manu and Satarupa. I am just introducing the character in the stories. Sati is the 16th and last daughter of Daksha and Prasudi. She was the most beautiful and liked most by Daksha. As advised by Brahma, father of Daksha, he gives Sati in marriage to Lord Shiva against his will. Daksha Yagam story is in the form of a dialogue between Vidura and Maitreya, as was just explained by Satish ji. Maitreya Maharshi mentioned that Sati, the 16th daughter, had no issue due to the adverse attitude of Daksha towards Shiva, Sati's husband, and due to the self-immolation of Sati. Vidura was surprised to see that a person like Shiva, who never keeps any ill feeling with anyone and liked by everyone, was hated by Daksha, and wanted to know the reason of Sati to sacrifice her body. This is what has been explained in the second chapter of the fourth skandha. There was a satram by the Prajapatis. This was attended by all great sages. And when Daksha entered the Yagashala, shining like a sun, everyone, due to respect to him, stood up, except Shiva and Brahma. Brahma is Daksha's father, so he did not mind. But Shiva, being his son-in-law, he took tremendous offense. Daksha lost his patience and his ego got puffed up. And he started insulting Shiva. See, Shiva's look was not that great. He used to have all sorts of things on his body. Physical appearance is always deceptive. The greatest story is that of Ashtavakra. He was having 8 bends in his body. When he entered Janaka's court, everybody laughed. Ashtavakra, he said, he also laughed back. Janaka asked him, why are you laughing? He said, I thought the court of Janaka is full of knowledgeable people. I was surprised to note that they are talking only about the physical appearances. While Daksha was insulting Shiva, Shiva was keeping absolutely calm. What is the lesson here? If somebody is shouting, doing something to us, it is very important to keep calm. Silence is a great weapon. And here, the silence of Shiva made him further angry. But Shiva was totally calm. Daksha, he cursed Shiva, telling that he will not get his oblation from any yaga henceforth. Daksha left the Yagashala, and Nandi got angry, and he also cursed Daksha. He also cursed the Ritvik because they were a party for all the things what was happening. On hearing the curse of Nandi, Bhrigu Maharshi also got annoyed. He also cursed the Parshadas of Shiva. Seeing all these things, Shiva felt very sad and he left the Yagashala without uttering a single word. Everyone went home and the yaga was completed without any further difficulties. Brahma made Daksha as the head of all Prajapatis. Daksha means skill. Daksha was extremely a skilled person. He was having tremendous capacity to organize things. But the ego was much more than to him. In order to take revenge on Shiva, he arranged another yaga where he invited all the gods, semi-gods, learned people, ancestors, and everyone except Shiva and except Shiva. Sati, who was sitting along with Shiva, saw the demigods, gods chatting and going through Kailas. And from their talk, she understood that her father has arranged a great yaga and all of them are going to attend the same. She wanted to also attend the yaga along with her husband. So she started talking to Shiva. She addressed Shiva. Your father-in-law has arranged a great yaga. Tasya Swasuraya. Here what exactly it communicates. It is very important to start your communication in a manner wherein your I should not be there. She said, your father-in-law. The I was camouflaged. She uses various words addressing Shiva because she wanted to see that somehow Shiva is pacified. She calls him Mridha, a person who making everyone happy, a person who is a source for everything, a person beyond birth and death, Ishvara, etc., etc. He also says, we have the right to go on to our own house, even if we are not invited. Shiva did not even utter a word. Again, something to be learned in terms of communication. Never interrupt when somebody says, which is also not in your own interest. Just keep smiling. This is what exactly Shiva did. Shiva smiled, seeing the pure hearts of Sati and her lack of wisdom, and worried about the great danger Sati will be in if she attends the Yagasala. Shiva remembered the incident in the previous Yagam. He also addresses his wife in a very nice manner, Shobhane. Again, something which you have to learn, how to be in a family, how a grihastha should behave in a family. He says, education, austerity, wealth, physical beauty, and youth, and family heritage are great virtues. But if it is in the hands of arrogant people and immature people, it is not good, and we should not go to such house. Shiva tries to give lot of reasons why we should not go there. Unfortunately, Sati was not in a mood to listen. Shiva continues, if you want to go, please go. But I am afraid that it will be inauspicious for you and even face a great danger. Again, a lesson for us. Don't force someone if somebody has a different opinion. Let them learn by their own by their own uh, practice. Shiva, after giving his opinion, just kept quiet. Sati was in a dilemma whether to go or not. Finally, emotions and love for her parents took over her intellect, and she walked away through her emotions. Unwillingly, she went away. Seeing the Swamini going, the bull, the Nandi, etc., were also told by Shiva to accompany them. Maniman, Maniman, others or yakshas, all of them also accompanied them. Here again another lesson, what is required for a grahastha. Even if the wife does something which is not to your liking, it is extremely important to see that the safety of the wife is ensured. Sati reached the Yagasala, and out of fear of Daksha, no one respected Sati except her sisters and mother. Again, a corporate lesson from this. If a person is in position and illogical, never expect a fair treatment. If you also do not follow the same, you will not be able to survive in that place. You will not be able to act selflessly. Your courageous conscience will not be able to be used. Seeing the attitude of Daksha, Sati addresses her father as Dvija. The reason for calling him as Dvija is, she doesn't want to get attached to his father. She wanted to detach from him and called him Dvija, a Brahmana. And she talks all about virtues of Shiva. She also talks to the Ritviks and says, if you are not able to control people doing acts of adharma, you should leave the place instead of supporting such action. Again, advice to all of us, if we are not able to do justice to our own conscience, and if we are not able to use our intellect and act, we should not stay in such a place. Sati, dressed in saffron garments, sat on the ground on the Yagasala, facing the north, in silence, and closed her eyes. Soon the body of Sati was ablaze with the heat produced by deep concentration and meditation. Everyone looked in aghast. Hearing that Sati has immolated herself, Shiva got furious. Getting up from his seat, he plucked up a cluster of hair from his head and dashed the same to the ground. There emerged a Divya Purushan, Veerabhadra, with 1,000 arms. He was radiating a combined brightness of 3 suns all together. Shiva ordered Veerabhadra to kill Daksha and destroy the Yagam. Having got the clearance from Rudra, Veerabhadra, accompanied by his Parshadas, reached the Yagasala. Seeing the huge form, everyone got afraid. They understood, having made Shiva angry, the danger is imminent. Seeing Veerabhadra, Ritvik ran away. This polluted the Yagashala. Maniman tied Brigu. Veerabhadran caught hold of Daksha and Veerabhadra tried to kill Daksha with weapons. But being a Yajna Pashu, it could not be done. So he twisted his head and killed him. After setting fire to Yagasala, Veerabhadra and associates returned to Kailash. All demigods got defeated by Rudra Parshadas. They ran to Brahma and Narayana. They explained the Brahma and Narayana did not attend the same because they knew what is going to happen. It is always important to avoid places where things are not under your control. Brahma said, it is the only way you can continue with the yaga is to go and ask for pardon. He said, go to Kailash and accept your mistake and ask for his pardon. Brahma took devas along with all the along with demigods, went to Kailash and they bowed before Shiva. On seeing Brahma, Shiva bowed to him. Brahma said, yes, Daksha has done a great sin against you. Devas and others present are also guilty of that. But it has been done because of their ignorance. Please forgive them. Even Bhrigu and others have also done. Bhrigu Maharshi and others have also done the same thing. Please forgive them. Please bless them and see that Daksha is brought back to life. And also bless all the Ritviks so that they can continue with the yaga. Making mistakes is human and wrong, but not asking pardon or forgiveness from the affected party is a great offense. Having been pacified by Brahma, Mahadev replied, I have no offense to anyone. I only corrected them. They were using their energy on a wrong direction. Since the head of Daksha is burnt, let him be alive with the god's head. Mahadev blessed Bhaga to have vision through Mitra and Pusha to have chewed food and Bhrigu Maharshi also to have his beard. Everyone accepted and accompanied by Shiva and Brahma all reached the Yajnashala. Daksha came back to life with a goat's head. The very sight of Lord Shiva purified Daksha. Daksha, with a voice choked, remembering his beloved daughter, Sati, praised Lord Shiva. He asked for forgiveness for his behavior and said that the punishment is really blessing. As advised by Brahma, Daksha started the yajna, and after doing the necessary prayachitta for interrupting the yajna, the, the yajna was completed. Vishnu, Mahavishnu said, I am the cause. I am I am the controller. I am the witness. The relevant sloka, Aham Brahma cha sarvascha Jagada Karanam Param Atmeshwara Ubadrishta Swayam Drik Visheshanaha. I am the witness of everything in the universe. I become Brahma, I become Vishnu, I become Shiva for the process of creation, existence, and annihilation. Hence, Bhagavan said, it is important to consider Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva as one entity. This is Jnanam. As instructed by Bhagavan, Daksha adored everyone by giving their portion of the yaga and others with dakshina, donation, etc. The yaga was thus completed with all its formalities, and everyone returned to their respective abode. Sati was reborn as Parvati, daughter of Himavan and Meena Devi. Parvati was having great devotion and attained Shiva through extreme devotion. Please allow me to conclude the journey with a small passage from Buddha's stories. Not sure whether this is true or not, but felt relevant as a learning. Buddha was once sitting in silence and doing meditation. Temptation and ego approached Buddha, sat in silence. When asked why they are not ignored, Buddha said, I see nothing in you worth holding on to. If I could do justice to the confidence imposed on me, I am blessed. Whatever I have said here are taken from various sources, and nothing is my original. If I have said something which is not correct, kindly ignore and forgive. I appreciate you for your patient hearing. Pranams to all of you. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyade Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Anandji, for that. The going through the story of 6 chapters, covering 6 chapters of the Bhagavata Mahapurana in the 4th skanda. Chapters, I think it was which chapter numbers? Do you remember? Yeah, I think it is
2 to 7.
2 to 7. Yeah, chapters 2 to 7 of skanda 4, which elaborated the story of Daksha. So now, having heard the story as it is in the Bhagavata Purana, Moolam, So we might be able to read stories of all these stories in different interpretations, different sources. There could be some differences here and there, but we are going to stick to the Bhagavata Purana, Mahapurana. And as exactly as it is, Anandji has now elaborated that story. Let us now quickly go into the significances. The significances initially might seem overwhelming, but then after 2 or 3 stories, I'm sure you will get the gist of it, and then you will start actually, when you hear the story itself, you will start the understanding the connection. So let's start from the beginning, as Anandji mentioned. We have the creation and its subsequent creations and all those things described in the Mahabharata Purana before we actually enter into the story. So that part also I have just captured it as a small infographic here, which was also shared previously. But for easy reference, I will just make it a little bit elaborate on it so that you will be able to connect with it when you go back to the WhatsApp group and look at these diagrams. So we have the words are also important. That's another thing. So it is the names that we have to actually understand. Brahman. Brahman means infinitely large is basically the direct translation of Brahman from English to Sanskrit. So Brahman, Sanskrit to English, sorry, Brahman. So infinite, implies, Brahman implies infinite. And what is infinite? We know it's very difficult for us to actually describe infinite or even conceive infinite with our limited perceptions. Because my eye cannot see infinitely. My ears cannot hear all the sounds. Just the distance as well as the frequencies of light, sound, frequencies of sound, you cannot hear. So all our senses are limited. And with those limitations, I cannot conceive of something that is beyond that limits, beyond those limits. What is there in all these various kinds of frequencies of light, frequencies of sound, and various, some things beyond our senses. So everything included beyond our senses, and everything that was ever there, which was there yesterday, which is today, which will be there tomorrow, which is yet to come, everything is there included in that everything. So infinite can also be told as, everything. So if somebody says that what is Brahman? Brahman means everything. That is more understandable than infinite, maybe. So from that actually emanated within that actually, even when it is infinite, it is wrong to say that from that infinite emerged something. That is wrong, because that something will then be separate from the infinite, which cannot be, because infinite encompasses everything. So what really happened at the beginning of this universe, the Sargam, is that, the universe emerged within this infinitude. Universe emerged within this infinitude. And, manifested. So, which means that there was nothing to be seen. Even though it was everything, there was, as far as senses are concerned, we may not be able to describe it, sense it, see it, and it is there. From that emerged something that is actually perceivable, visible, bounded, seems limited, the universe. And this universe actually then, started, expanding, and then we have for the planets, the stars, the sun, moon, the planets, the different universes, and all those things, multiverse theory. Okay, so those universes. So there is this forces of nature that actually started taking shape within this universe. And these forces of nature actually became creative forces, expansive forces, and also forces of destruction. And these, our Upanishads defined as the Brahma, Vishnu, and the Shiva. Vishnu, this universe is pervaded, so it is Vishnu. And if all this energy is pervading the universe after this creation, and then started expanding, pervasiveness, that is Vishnu. Brahma, about creation, and Shiva, of auspiciousness of energy, because that auspicious energy is basically what enriches and enhances by destroying the evil. So Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are the manifestations of the infinitude. manifested forces that we pray to. So they control this universe. They are this creative, productive, and enriching forces are what actually lords over this universe. Therefore, it is called as Ishvara. Each one of those, the Ishvara, the symbolization of Ishvara. Three aspects of Ishvara, Trimurtis. And within this universe started evolving life forms. And those life forms became the individuals. Each, it could be, inanimate objects as well as animate objects like all of us. We are all jivas in this universe. So we have this Brahman, Ishvara, and Jiva concepts. The Upanishad describes these things in various ways. We will touch upon some of these aspects as and when the stories throw open these things. So we'll come to that. We will, at the moment, just let us look at this initial creation that happened. And now, in this manifested universe, we have the power of creativity is tapped within us also. And that power of creativity, or that is the capability with which we actually ideate, create, make ideas and all. Our human brain is capable of ideating, creating, creativity. So that force of ideation, the force of creativity is the power of Brahma within us. The power to create. And what are the practical implications of this ideation and creativity is innovation, novelty and other things, which is, so the power to create comes with innovation as well as also about enriching and productivity, etc., of creating things in a more efficient manner. So efficiency, productivity, enrichment, all those things come there. The power to produce and the power to think, to innovate, and the power to produce are outcomes of the power of creation, power to create. There are this novelty of ideation, innovation, etc., is the capacity of human beings to reflect, articulate, and express. Reflect, thinking, in deeper thinking, articulate, translate the thoughts into something, and then into physical realities, express. So reflection, articulation, and expression are the three stages of manifestation. This is actually captured in the Pranava Mantra also. When we get time, some of the stories, I will connect that. A, U, and Ma represent this reflection, articulation, and expression. So every time we chant Om, we are invoking the power of infinite within us for reflection, articulation, and finally expression. That is what, we chant Om. What should be? We should be actually connecting with that infinitude, helping us to reflect, articulate, and express. Om. And the efficiency of productivity are hundredfold, hundreds of such efficiencies, 100 meaning, countless numbers, or hundreds of patterns of intelligence, we can create within our minds using our creative impetus. So the powers of thinking and the powers of production. What happens because of this? That is how this world is created. The world that we experience, the world that we transact with is created by these powers of thinking and the powers of productivity. The world is created. So this is the picture, the grand picture of Sarga and Visarga that is explained. And this is characterized as Brahma, Manu, and Shatarupa. Manu, man, Manu, mankind. Human capacity of innovation is man's capability. So that is represented as Manu. And Shatarupa, that when that power of thought is married to hundreds of creative intelligence, patterns of intelligence, productive intelligence, then we create the world. The rest of the world was created by Manu and Shatarupa. That is how the Bhagavata represents this phenomena and explains it through stories. And in this world, when that world is created, how can you enrich this world? How can you make this world sustainable? How can you destroy this world? We need As against the destruction, we need to enhance and sustain this world. For that, what is required? What is required is a revolution of the mind. Our mind has to be enhanced. The thought device is the mind, and that mind needs to be revamped, cleansed with what? Character, with character. So the Bhagavata Purana is nothing but stories that tell us what character is all about and what kinds of character that we need to develop. So we have, through the 12 stories that we have selected, we are highlighting these qualities, which is humility, determination, faith in our own self, discrimination and dispassion, selflessness, the capacity to think, act, and succeed, making sacrifices, the power of internal intrinsic motivations, subduction of negative tendencies, subduing of our negative tendencies, setting high goals and putting in self-effort for that, dispassion, the strength of dispassion, and cognitive capabilities of observing, learning, and making connections. So these are the things that our mind should be shaped with. And throughout this Bhagavata Purana, stories as exemplify the development of these, and the things that stand against these things are told as tales. So we need not only to focus on tales, which will attract our attention and moor it to that, but still you have to look ahead. You have to see the tale behind the tale. And the tale behind the tale is basically what is required for us to be reformed. For the jiva to actually see that Paramatma sitting upstairs and then, fly to that level. That is what is required. And this is basically what the Bhagavata Purana is talking about through these 12 stories that we have selected. Humility of Daksha, Daksha's stories talk about this humility, the importance of humility. And similarly, the stories Dhruva, Puranjana, Narasimha, Gajendra, and Mandara churning, Mahabali, Sri Krishna, Kaliya, Rukmini, Kujela, and the Avadhuta. These stories are actually going to talk about these 12 characteristics of what you call the fiber of character that we need to develop so that the world becomes sustainable, the world that we create through our power of thought and the power of productivity, which is nothing but the outcome of the creative capabilities that as Brahma that is within us. So we have all these powers right within us. We have this Ishvara within us, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, which are the manifestations of the infinitude, the Brahman within us. That is the reason why Adi Shankaracharya said, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, and all those things are because of that. That Brahman is right inside us. And giving us the life with the powers of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and helping us to think through the mind and to develop these qualities of humility, determination, etc. And this is demonstrated through these stories. So we look at the Daksha, and that is basically Daksha's stories in the beginning, and this is basically what we have seen. So basically, what is it? Daksha's story also. Let us look at it in a symbolic manner now. We have these powers, forces of nature, that is actually being tapped by our brain. Forces of nature, all electromagnetic forces, nuclear forces, and all those things are there. The power, they are then converted into something practical. It is not just electromagnetism that the brain is giving out. No, the brain is giving out thoughts and intelligence, so that we can live in this world and create a better world for not only us, but for the future. Learn from the past, live this life, and then create the future. So that universal energies, the powers of divinity, Ishvara, that we need to tap in terms how? Through the intellect, a process. There is something called as an intellect within us. And that intellect is not something that we can see. It is a power. It is how the power is getting translated. It is something like, if you very, off the cuff analogy, another analogy that I use, we have all of us drive cars. What is required is a fuel, gas or water. In the West, they call it gas. We call it as fuel. So the fuel is something initially, and that fuel then gets translated into various forces within the machine. It is ignited, and then all the translation processes happen in the machine, and that is then again translated into action, motion, ultimately in the this is. So this is how that translation takes place. So you can actually say that the fuel is the Brahman, and this translation of the fuel into forces inside, the forces are the Ishvara, and then they translate into Jiva, or the actions in this world, physical world, at the end level. So this is the translation that happened. So intellect is there. You can call that intellect initially becomes a translation, intelligence into something practical, and in the outside world, that intelligence is exhibited either as selfish ideas or selfless ideas, selfishness and selflessness. So this is how it actually gets translated. Now, the forces, actually, what is the point? The starting point within our brain is the prajna. The prajna. It starts as the prajna, the forces of Ishvara. The Ishvara becomes prajna within us. Each individual spark of Ishvara is the prajna within each one of us, and all the universe, all the people in this world, and all the living beings, all the prajnas put together is called as Ishvara. That Ishvara, the prajna, is the window to this world outside. That is that window through which we see the universe of wisdom and knowledge. We can. It's not that everybody sees it, but it is there. Potentially, all of us have this prajna, which is the window to this eternal knowledge, or any knowledge for that matter. For that, we need to have a device now. Without the device, we will not be able to tap into that knowledge. What is that device? That is our mind. For that, the mind has to become consciousness. So consciousness is the manifestation of prajna in the outside world, connected to all the senses, such that it is able to connect with the world outside and also the inside. And they connect. The consciousness of awareness comes in through the senses, all the senses working for us. But the senses are limited. Therefore, what we see, perceive, etc. could be limited. But the mind is more than that, and therefore is able to transcend the senses. Mind is able to transcend the senses. And the intelligence, therefore, is able to transcend the perception of the senses. But the intellect, the power of translating the universal power into intelligence, is something that is common to everyone. All of us have the same power, but the devices may be, limited, different, or developed in different ways. Some people become better, some people not that better, etc. All those things happen because of that, the material. So we have this translation process, and this is how the picture is. And the first level, if you look at this, we have the intellect, the forces of creation, production, and discriminative energies, auspicious. This is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the potential powers of creativity, productivity, and enrichment. Then translated into physical, manifested translations is intelligence. That is what is represented by Daksha. Daksha as the dexterity of skills. The word Daksha implies dexterity of or competencies of skills. The word Daksha. Why was that character named Daksha? That is because they are talking about our intellect, inner capabilities. Daksha, dexterity. Prasudhi is the capacity to produce. The capacity to produce. Prasudhi. Sati means virtuousness, chastity, goodness. Sati, the word Sati. Nandi means unwavering focus. and the happiness that you derive out of that happiness. All this can be is the representation of Nandi. And that Nandi is also beautifully captured in our temples and all. In Shiva temples, for example, the Nandi always sits looking at Shiva. So it is our mind that is focused on the inner happiness. The mind that is focused on the inner happiness is the Nandi. Veerabhadra, auspicious, what you call strength, righteous energies, an auspicious hero. That is Veerabhadra. So the characters are nothing but the characteristics of our intelligence that we need to develop. Intelligence that we need to develop. We have to combine them. Just because you are dexterous and skilled, you become a Daksha, that is not what is required. You have to combine that with Sati, Nandi, and Veerabhadra, all those things. And then only it becomes a successful, sustainable hero or life within us. Ego and selfishness, the other part, the negative side. Here they are represented as austerities that produce these negativities. Bhrigu, Bhaga, and Pushan are, I'm on the representative characters I am taking. Some of the minor characters I am just leaving out. So Bhrigu, Bhaga, and Pushan. Bhrigu means shining, brilliant. So it is the brilliance of wealth that is created. In negative as well as positive, it could be, So the brilliance of wealth, where each character represents some aspects. So we're looking at that. Bhaga is that power who apportions or who helps us to, the capacity of our thinking that helps us to distribute prosperity. Distribute property. So distribution property can be for selfish means as well as for the happiness of everyone, either way. So Bhaga and Pushan is the protector, nourisher, leading to prosperity. So these three have their help we need to take. Daksha, dexterity, took these three helps, their advice. And he started behaving so badly because of selfishness. Then the other one, the final picture is about humility and politeness, which is the politeness and of the, or you can also call it as sheepishness is another aspect, where because of your mistakes, for example, when you actually engage in some very bad behavior, let's say, and finally you realize that what you have done is bad, and then somebody comes and talks to you about it, tells you pointedly that at point blank on your face, it tells you the bad things that you have done. The way you will look at that person is what? Sheepishly looking. In English also we talk about, I had to but sheepishly look at the insinuator. That's all. So that sheepishness is about something kind of politeness and humility that comes from, that is the politeness and humility that comes after pointing out the faults within us. That sheepish nature. That is Daksha's head becoming sheephead, a goat head. Okay, a goat head. So these are the characteristics of the inner revolution that we need to bring about within us. So the intellect is the power or capacity for rational or intellectual thinking. It has creative, productive, and enriching aspects. Intelligence is capabilities that result from high intellect. They are abilities of the mind and body. Ego and selfishness are perceptions and adaptations arising out of ownership of the fruits of our actions for personal gains. That is the reason why Gita says, don't do that. Karmanyevadhikarasthe ma baleshu kathajana 247. And the motivations that drive actions for pleasure and immediate gains. That is selfishness. And what is the humility of politeness is ultimately reflected in the attitudes affected by consciousness of our fault. We realize the mistakes and the sheepishness comes, and through which humility comes. So this is the representation of the story, the characters and the representation of the story. So And now I think probably you can look at this diagram and see the significances. Brahma, Manu, and Shatarupa are the mind-born sons and daughter of Brahma, and uh, Daksha. Prasuti was born to them and was married to Daksha. Daksha was advised of austerities by Bhrigu, Bhaga, and Pushan. And Daksha hated Shiva, who married Sati, ultimately insulted Sati, and because of which she immolated herself. And the indigenous power of auspiciousness that helped to destroy our negativities, Virabhadra, and Nandi, the focus of mind required, came and then disfigured Pushan, Bhaga, and Bhrigu. Disfigured in the sense that translated the selfishness into selflessness, so that Daksha became polite, Godhead, the head of a goat. Okay, that is what it is. It is about our creative energies, thought and productivity being the outcomes of creative energy, and the thinking and productivity create the power to produce Prasudhi, who, along with competencies, the power to produce, along with married to our competencies, etc., and dexterity of skills, etc., helped by the disciplines of creation, distribution, and protection of wealth in the right manner. If it is ignored, then virtues are destroyed. But when virtues are destroyed, our conscience strikes. And Virabhadra and Nandi help us to get over it and ultimately develop humility is that story. This is basically what was captured through the arrogance of competencies versus discrimination. Arrogance of competence. So sometimes you develop these capabilities and become arrogant. That is the Dakshatvam coming out. Then there was the heed of the call of conscience, which Sati ignored Shiva. The conscience telling us initially, and our intellect, the gross side of the intellect, ignoring that and going forward. And then, landing up in trouble. Immolation of goodness and sense of right purpose. So this immolation. The destruction of the ego that happens afterwards, and the discrimination and righteousness, which is about the importance of discrimination and righteousness, is basically what the Brahma's stuti as well as the Shiva's advised is also mentioned in the last seventh verse. The discrimination comes with great power of righteous energy within us. Discriminative capabilities come with that power. It is a great and auspicious power. That is the Virabhadra within us. That result from our discriminative intellect. The power to discriminate, that intelligence, the Shiva power within us. It is inherently enriching in nature. Destruction of ego is the end result of the mighty forces of righteousness, Virabhadra, going and destroying that yaga. Discrimination and righteousness are then highlighted. The powers of discriminative intelligence and righteousness are two halves of the auspicious energy of enrichment. Discriminative intelligence and righteousness. You need to actually be able to differentiate what is right and what is pleasure. If you don't have that knowledge, then you may not know what to do. And then righteousness, the energy to actually fight the evil, negatives, the path of pleasure, and take to the path of good. So it is through this combination of these two powers that the world is sustained. Creative energies kindle the effort, and productive energies sustain the progress. Discrimination and righteous energy must energize our cognitive functions. This is the advice that Shiva gives. Shiva Shakti. Shiva Shakti. It is that this Shiva Shakti, the two halves, discriminative intelligence, Shiva, and righteousness, Sati, Shiva Shakti. This Shiva Shakti is the eternal infinitude coming through us. Sanadana Brahman. Brahman, Sanatana Brahman. That is, that Sanatana, eternal Brahman, is available within us as these two halves. The Naranari, Swarupam, as Shiva and Shakti. Which is what? Discriminative intelligence, the power to discriminate between what is pleasant and what is good. And righteousness, the willpower and the determination and sticking to dharma, righteousness, the two halves combining together, Shiva Shakti. And that is how Brahma addresses Shiva as these two come. You can actually see this 6th and 7th chapters and see what Brahma said as well as what Shiva finally concluded. And therefore, humility of competencies and energy of wisdom. This is what is highlighted through this story. The conclusion of Yajna, Daksha Yajna, and its ultimate, message from Shiva, blessing everyone who actually has these powers or takes part in such an endeavor in this world with humility of competencies and the energy of wisdom combining together. You will actually live a life that is blessed by Shiva and Parvati. So this is, in essence, the significance of the story of Daksha Yaga, or what you can call as the tale behind the tale of Daksha Yaga. And each character representing something within us. We can, I think it is already time, 7:30, so we will, we have overshot the time today because we had some introductions, but some of these slides I will be posting also for all of you to reflect upon, because it is the first story, and a few of the initial stories are going to be very deep like this, and then slowly we will feel into a track with all the story, the rest of the stories coming up. By the time we reach Krishna Avatar and all, we will start enjoying that Krishna living within us. Okay, and that is why the Dashama Skanda is Krishna's story. The Krishna story could have been the first skanda. Why? Vedavyasa thought that it is to go at the last, then only people will enjoy that. Okay, before that, all these things are elaborated. So with this, I will conclude for today, and hopefully, we will start getting a grip of these things soon. Let me stop now, and after that, we can discuss for some time and then wrap up. Before that, I also want to tell you that the next story will be Dhruva Charitam. That will be on March 27th only, not the second Friday, because a couple of weeks I will be out of first, second and third weeks I will be out. So I am traveling, therefore I will have to postpone it to 27th. So we have some time also to think over this first story. Okay, so let's stop now and then we'll come back for discussions.
Thank you.